Well, hi, Alicia.
Hey, Marcy.
How are things going in Saskatchewan?
Oh, cold. Still basking in the glow of the Grey Cup win, though, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But if you really want a better sense of what's going on next door, our podcast, This is Saskatchewan, delivers 2 episodes each week. How's 2026 shaping up so far in Manitoba?
Well, you heard me say meh because we are not basking in the glow of the bomber season. Kind of maybe glad it's over. The Jets also meh. So why don't we talk about something else? In Manitoba, politically, the Premier's actually got some lofty goals that might affect people here a lot. So in our podcast, This is Manitoba, we've been looking at his goal to fix healthcare problems across the country, also to bring grocery prices down and transform the province from have-not to a have province with a new resource development, which is something in Saskatchewan you guys already have. You know, you're considered a have place. So we've been in lots of those stories and more in our podcast, which, yeah, again, you can follow wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love it if you'd follow us.
Done. I've got to say, it is refreshing to catch up on stories affecting one of our closest neighbors. I want to make a pitch, though, for folks to give us a little follow, too.
Done.
We talk about politics on our podcast a lot as well. Let's just say canola tariffs come up a fair bit. We've also talked about how immigration cuts could force one Lloydminster restaurant to close. We've looked at the impact the self-proclaimed Queen of Canada and her cult followers have had on this small little community in Saskatchewan called Richmond. And we seem to have these incredibly long wait lists for swimming lessons in both Regina and Saskatoon. So we looked at why that is. It's an interesting province with a lot of stories.
Yeah. I heard part of that episode on swimming. It's actually not unlike the demand in Manitoba. We have so much in common. I think we should do this more often. After all, we share a lot. Like prairie skies.
Cold winters.
Yes, buggy summers.
I'm Alicia Gravinsky, and this is Saskatchewan.
And I'm Marcy Marcusa with our special episode of This is Manitoba. 2 podcasts in provinces that, as I said, share more than just a border. To the rest of the country, I think Saskatchewan and Manitoba might seem pretty similar. But I'll tell you what, if you have lived in either place, as Alicia and I do, you also know there are many differences.
So today, in a special co-production episode, we're drilling down into how complicated life can get for people in one of the border communities between our 2 provinces.
That border community is Flin Flon. Roughly 5,000 people call that northern city home in Manitoba. Now, it's mostly geographically here in Manitoba, but it actually spans both sides of our interprovincial prairie border. There's about 200 households that are technically in Saskatchewan.
So what is it like to live in 2 provinces at once?
We are going to bring you stories on both sides of our inter-prairie province border today. First of all, let's start here in Manitoba. CBC Manitoba was in Flin Flon to find out, which, Alicia, if you've never been, I have to say is a very cool place. Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's you might not imagine Manitoba as having a really rocky exterior and being hilly at all, but this is one of those cool spots in the north. I was there in November. We were there for a special project we call Communities in Focus. So we did a live morning show there. We had coverage concentrated on the area, and we had teams all over Manitoba with the project. But reporter Rosanna Hempel looked at this interprovincial divide. She spoke to residents who told her they often find themselves caught in the crosshairs of interjurisdictional complications. Rosanna was speaking to us during our live broadcast from a local cafe. It's called the Orange Toad. It's a really cool, bustling place as well. So you're going to hear some background noise throughout our conversation. But she met 2 Saskatchewan-side Flin Floners, Guy Rideout and Mark Tetoff. They both have lived in the city for decades. And as you're going to hear, she starts off by telling me they have different ways of describing their experience living on both sides of the border.
They had different names for it. Guy calls it no man's land, and Mark called it in between. You really see that when you're driving down Hudson Street. You might not notice anything different at first on the Saskatchewan side until you look a little closer and see those Saskatchewan license plates. Both Guy and Mark say they feel that Flin Flon is one big community, one city, but every once in a while there's these things that happen where they feel the border. Here's Mark Tetoff.
But we have the best of both worlds sometimes, per se, because, yeah, we go to Saskatchewan, we can go to here on Manitoba side, but it's the little glitches that arise, those little the postal code thing, the jurisdiction where we are. Oh, sorry, we don't know you because you're not. This address doesn't work. So we're alienated. Would that be the correct word? And it's not. So it's always. It makes it tough on us, and it does. It gets emotional because you get wore out from it.
What does it mean, actually, Rosanna, for them if they live in Flin Flon, but they're from Saskatchewan?
Well, it means that people there have Saskatchewan driver's licenses and health cards, but it also means that they have a Manitoba postal code. Otherwise, the mail can get mixed up. They get cheaper electricity through Manitoba Hydro, and they pay their municipal taxes to the city of Flin Flon, so that makes sure that their roads get plowed, that kind of thing. And this is where the glitches come in. Not everyone out there knows that there is a Flin Flon, Saskatchewan, and it does cause some issues every once in a while. Mark gave me an example where his wife was denied financing for a new car in Saskatoon because their Saskatchewan licenses and Manitoba postal code didn't match.
I would think by now, we're all electronic, we're all supposed to be whatever, but they give you questions. They question us, how you have a health card and a driver's license, but you're Manitoba. No, we're not Manitoba residents, we're Manitoba mailing. And then they ask too many more questions.
It's just so interesting, right? All these little things. What other glitches have there been?
Yeah, I want to mention a couple recent ones. Education property taxes and the evacuation benefit. So for education, we'll remember that the NDP government got rid of that Tory rebate for homeowners, and they replaced that max $1,500 credit called the Homeowners Affordability Tax Credit. And Flin Floners on the Sask side used to get that old rebate.
So used to. What about now?
So this year they didn't get the new $1,500 credit, and the city argues that Flin Floners on the Sask side should get it because they pay their municipal taxes to Flin Flon and pay their school division taxes in Manitoba. The Manitoba government tells us, though, that this new credit falls under different legislation, the Income Tax Act, which is based on residency. And because folks there pay their income taxes to Saskatchewan, they aren't eligible for the credit. So that issue is still being ironed out.
So much to think about. What about during the big story in this area this summer? What happened to these Flin Floners on the Sask side during the wildfires?
Yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges. That was the evacuation benefit. So when the city issued their mandatory evacuation notice on May 28th, it did apply to everyone in Flin Flon. Guy Rideout said it was hard to get help from either province because at first neither side would take responsibility for them. They'd hear from Saskatchewan something like, "You're from Flin Flon, Manitoba." Then they'd hear from the Canadian Red Cross in Manitoba something like, "You're from Saskatchewan."
I met people in Nepal when we were evacuated that were from this area. Some got it, some didn't. It was a gong show. It was very, very annoying, and it was about a week before we got home I finally got some assistance.
So in the end, Guy says he did get his evacuee benefits from the Red Cross in Manitoba.
I understand the city of Flin Flon right now is looking for more funding and support from the Saskatchewan government. Why is that?
Yeah, I talked to Mayor George Fontaine about this, and it's because the city says it provides services to people outside Flin Flon, including in Creighton, for example, which is also right on the border. There's also Denair Beach, Saskatchewan, not too far away, and some other places as well. They estimate that overall they serve about 15,000 people outside of Flin Flon, and one example Mayor Fontaine gave was the new Aqua Centre, which will open next year. It cost $18 million, and he says they didn't get additional money from the Saskatchewan government for it.
You're using our services. We're a border community. It's not unlike how the deal that you have on the Lloydminster side. Except on that side, you're providing services to someone else. Here we are, and we need some help with that. So yeah, on that particular point, we do need some conversation, of course, at all levels of government.
So Flin Flon does get money from the Saskatchewan government for each home that falls on that side of the border. The government did give us a statement, and they said that it also allocates federal funding to Flin Flon every year that the city can use for things like infrastructure projects. And they said that an aquatic center would be eligible for that funding. They didn't say how much is transferred annually.
So what about Guy and Mark? I mean, has it ever become so complicated? I mean, as you said, when everything is sort of like the license plate doesn't match the driver's license and you have to wait for your benefits for wildfire and explain where you live. Does it ever get so frustrating in Flin Flon, Saskatchewan that they maybe want to leave and relocate?
I put that question to them, and no, they love it here. And they told me that the hardest part was really in the beginning when they had to learn all of those differences. And besides, Mark says he doesn't want to give in.
I wouldn't move. This is my home. We enjoy it. I've asked my children if we'd move, where would we move? If I'd go to the farm, if I'd buy an acreage, and no, they don't want to. This is they grew up here. They're friends. They love it. We're outdoors people, and it's a close-knit community.
His backyard actually overlooks it's a beautiful view of both Flin Flon, Manitoba and Flin Flon, Saskatchewan. And he told me he just hopes everyone out there recognizes that there's two of them.
So some pretty interesting stories shared there up in Flin Flon. But driver's licenses and hydro bills aside, as the mayor of Flin Flon was mentioning to Rosanna, there's more serious complications for residents of border towns. George Fontaine says that your province, Leisha, and mine have very different approaches to things, which became a problem during the 2025 wildfire season when those different approaches got in the way of a coordinated emergency response. And the bureaucracy around which jurisdiction you fall under also creates issues for things like healthcare. And I know that now it's time for us to look at a report that you have on that front.
Yeah, healthcare is a concern for people who live on either side of the border. I take you to a community in our province called Creighton, Saskatchewan. It's only an 8-minute drive away from Flin Flon. It's a town of 1,200 people. There's no hospital, so people have to make a choice. There's two choices. The closest Saskatchewan hospital is in Nipawin, which is about 350 kilometers south. Or they could walk across the border to Flin Flon, Manitoba. That's how close it is. So most people go to Flin Flon.
When we were in Flin Flon, I could go like this and see Creighton. I think we actually drove in. How did they describe that experience, though, walking across for their healthcare?
Well, it depends, right? So Frances Geringer is a 78-year-old Creighton resident, and she often went to Flin Flon for care. She had open heart surgery in 2011 and was put on a regular dose of blood thinners at that point. And that dosage is based on these weekly international normalized ratio tests, or INR for short. So Frances would go get these INR tests weekly to help her figure out what kind of medication she should be taking. And this was typically carried out at the Flin Flon General Hospital. Then that hospital would fax the information to her Saskatchewan doctor.
You said fax, so
Yeah.
Does that take time? I mean, I'm guessing there's some kind of a lag if someone's got to fax that info.
Yeah, so in Saskatchewan, people will be familiar with e-health. All test results are entered, and then people can access their accounts easily and really quite quickly before they get into their doctor.
And in Manitoba, we are jealous, I know I'm interjecting, but of e-health, because we don't have it.
No, there's no centralized system. So Frances knows that there's this faster way to get that information, that these results could show up on e-health, but they don't because it's two different systems, two different provinces that don't share information easily. So while Frances is waiting for these results, she suffers a stroke. Back in November, her daughter spoke with CBC's Peter Mills about how data sharing between provinces may have helped her mom.
She's very similar to what she was when she had her stroke on November 4th. So not huge changes, just some little changes every day, I guess, and baby steps. And I guess that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, take us back to, before that happened. Why did your mom need to go for medical tests?
Well, my mom had open heart surgery a number of years ago, in fact, back in 2011. And as a result of that, she had to be put on a blood thinner. She was on one to begin with, and then just with the time progressing and she had a couple of valves replaced, that they needed to put her on a stronger one, so they put her on warfarin. So with warfarin or with blood thinners, most people know that you have to have your blood work done very regularly because they want to know what your INR level is to determine if your blood is within the range that your doctor decides. And if it's not, then they adjust your medication based on that, whether your blood is too thick or whether your blood is too thin.
Yeah, and just how are the medical or the Saskatchewan, specifically Saskatchewan medical services around the Creighton area? Is there anything really available?
No, there isn't, and it never has been. As a child, I grew up there, and I graduated high school in Flin Flon. We've always gone to the Manitoba side for any medical care. The only thing that is different from when I was a child to now is that a number of years ago, the hospital in Flin Flon, the services were shut down other than basically the emergency, which had been renovated and a lot of money spent on it. And then one floor in the hospital, and then another one that's for palliative care. So there hasn't been a change, never been a change. There has never been medical services in Saskatchewan, and so anyone that resided in that area, which just doesn't encompass Creighton, it encompasses Denair Beach, that was also part of the fires this summer. Even some of the First Nation reserves that surround the area, everybody relied very heavily on the doctors and the medical services in Flin Flon.
So, Kimberly, what happened between, that period of her last test to her having that stroke? What happened?
Well, I think I just, before I head into the answer for that question, I just need to make sure that that people are aware that, this is no fault of a doctor. This is no fault of a hospital. I clearly believe that it's the break in the medical system when it comes to the government and the sharing of important information. I also want to, let people know that this isn't about my mom anymore, because my mom is where she is, and it's already happened. This is about people moving forward, and our family's wish is that nothing like this is ever to happen again to another family, because it's not right. So in Saskatchewan, we're blessed to have e-health. And if we have our medical services provided in Saskatchewan, our information is uploaded to our e-health and we have quick access to it. Sadly, when you don't have service in Saskatchewan, like my mom and dad do, or don't, they have to go to Flin Flon. So my mom would go to the lab at the Flin Flon Hospital and have her blood work done. But because of the error or the break in the system, the problem that we have with border towns or just truly across Canada, because it doesn't matter if you live in a border town or if you're in an accident somewhere out in Alberta, the doctors out there can't access your health records either. So it's a break in the system, and so my mom got her blood work done, and the lab faxes the information to my mom's doctor in Saskatoon, and my mom is waiting until she gets a phone call to find out if her INR level is where it needs to be for any adjustments that need to be made. And sadly, when my mother had her blood work done on October 27th, she didn't get a call immediately, and 8 days later, she had a massive stroke.
Well, Kimberly, again, we're very sorry, obviously, that you have all been dealing with this. Just what have you learned about that process, getting medical results from Manitoba into the Saskatchewan system?
Well, I think, like I said, it's just something that our governments need to come to an agreement with. We live in Canada. We have free health care. So the sharing of important information, such as my mom's, should never be an issue. And I just feel like something has to be done, and it needs to be looked at immediately. It's not just a Manitoba-Saskatchewan issue. It's a Canada-wide issue. And, if there's just one thing that we can do is to share our mom's story so that nobody else has to live through such such trauma again.
Yeah, what do you think would have helped? I mean, the fact that you said they have to send a fax when you already mentioned we now have an e-health system that can be immediate, right? Is that what you're hoping for, that other provinces can have that same immediate access to health records?
Yes, absolutely. And, the fact that my mom does have e-health, why is it that the lab in Flin Flon, at no fault, but the lab in Flin Flon doesn't have the right to upload that information to my mom's health record? Because then it becomes a waiting game, and doctors are busy. And, as I said earlier, it's at no fault of anybody. I believe it's a break in the system with the governments. And so, yeah, nobody should have to wait for their information, especially when it is life-saving. So
Kimberly, Kimberly, are you, obviously you're sharing this story with us, which we really appreciate. Have you reached out to the government or any other health officials about this?
I have, yes, actually. I've been in touch with a representative from the government, from the Saskatchewan government. I reached out to the Manitoba government, and I have had no response. I had immediate response from the Saskatchewan government, and they called me and told me that I would be receiving a phone call from someone who would directly deal with it, and I haven't as of yet. Tomorrow, it will be 3 weeks since my mom had her stroke, so I would like to think that moving forward, as I said before, this isn't about my mom. This is about other families, and I would like to think that we would hear back, our family would hear back, and some matter, and find out what the plan is and how things are going to change, so that nobody has to be faced with something like this.
Yeah, it took a lot of strength for Kimberly to speak out while her mother was so sick. But like you heard, she feels compelled to raise awareness, not just for the people who are caught on either side of the Manitoba or Saskatchewan border, but for really anyone living in a border community. She says they deserve the same level of care. And Marcy, I do have a sad update. I followed up with her daughter and learned that Frances had died in mid-December. But Kimberly says she's still advocating and is waiting for both the Saskatchewan and Manitoba government to address her concerns.
Well, a sad update, but maybe sharing this on our CoPro podcast will get some attention on both sides of the border, since that's where her healthcare is. It's been really great to connect with you over these really important stories today, Alicia. We should do this more often, for sure. I said that at the beginning, but we really should.
I know. I agree. There is so much to learn on both sides of the border.
So for everybody leaning into us, thanks for listening to This is Manitoba.
And to This is Saskatchewan. If you have enjoyed this episode, you can check out our feeds for more from each province. We are everywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll talk again soon.
And I'm going to go put on a hoodie because the weather's cold's going to return.
Marcy, I think you mean a bunny hug.
I promise I'll call it that if I'm in Sask. Take care, Alicia. Bye-bye.
Stay warm.